Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Oh. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we are the co-authors of the Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, 2025.
Holy shit.
That's crazy.
So before we get started, we wanted to let you know that we are now doing live workshops. We're doing every couple weeks. We're alternating between the live solution to addiction workshop for substance use, and then the following week will be for PMO and sex addiction. So look for those. Go to thefreedommodel.org, and whichever, at the top of the page, whichever one you want, if you click on the solution to addiction or the solution to PMO and sex addiction, it will bring you to a page where you can find out when those live workshops are going to be.
The other thing is we've noticed that there's a lot more new people that are watching this podcast. And so if you don't know us, you can look us up on the web, or if you want to see our bios, where we came from and what we've done over the last 35 years, Michelle and I specifically, and Stephen Slate and others, go to thefreedommodel.org and check out the bio page.
I think it's under About.
Yeah, About. That's right. And then just, scroll down and you'll see our official bios. That can be helpful. So you know who we are and why we know so much. We've been doing this a long time.
We do. We can help you solve your substance use problems, your, porn problems, whatever addiction, whatever you're struggling with behavior. We know how to help you to solve it. And you don't have to go to meetings. You don't have to go to a rehab. You don't have to
be on replacement medications for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you don't have to consider yourself to be in recovery for the rest of your life. Right. And it's interesting because online I saw a comment, I think it was in one of the Leaving AA groups, where this person realized, they came to the realization that all of the problems that they have in their lives, they said they'd been away from substances for years. And they just figured out as they were leaving AA that, you know what? Everybody has problems like I have, because for the longest time, and I thought this too, when I was in AA, I thought every single problem that I encountered in life was because at one point in time, I had a drinking and a drug problem.
Right. So it all related back to this idea that you're an alcoholic or you have some sort of alcohol issue, but somehow this is all this interrelated sort of pseudo disease thing.
Yeah. Because you're an addict, even if you're an addict in recovery, that's why, you're having marital problems and that's why you're having problems at work. Or no, you're human, and human beings have all kinds of problems because life is messy.
Yeah. It's a muddy process. So what are we going to talk about today? This is we're entering a new year.
Yes.
And we do have a huge amount of people that are new to the Freedom Model.
We
and
do.
Maybe you haven't read the book. I suggest you read the book or listen to it. We have an audio version.
Yes. Somebody was asking about that. You can go right to thefreedommodel.org and
it's under the books tab.
Under the books tab, you see audiobook. You can get it, the Audible version of it, or you can get the Apple iBooks version of it. Mm-hmm. It is available. I think it's available also on Spotify now as well.
Yep. So we wanted to go back to our roots today a little bit and talk about, no meetings, no rehabs, no replacement medications, no recovery apparatus is needed to move past a habit, a confounding and sometimes an even tragic habit, a confusing habit, a painful one that you feel has you beat, one that you feel you have no control over. That understanding that you have no control, or that belief system, doesn't require meetings or rehabs or endless therapies. What it requires is clarification of truth. And you're confused because you have a belief that there's an out of control condition that does not exist. So we want to start with this idea. And Michelle actually reminded me of this focus that people have with this out of control, I can't stop. Once I start, I can't stop idea. When you've been doing this for 35 years, you sometimes forget the basics. Even when I'm coaching, sometimes I get a little advanced with people.
Ahead.
Yeah, get ahead. And she's like, you got to ratchet back and get back to basics because these people don't know. They don't know that they're creating these habits out of their own desires and that they're not out of control. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I have to get back to those basics with some of these people. Now we have a lot more educated followers now. So I'm able, when I'm coaching, sometimes I can bypass that part because they've already come to grips with the fact that they're not out of control. So we get a lot more people like that, but every once in a while now, we're getting a lot of new people and they really believe, you may be one of them. You may believe that you need meetings, that you need some sort of apparatus from the outside to stop you from doing what you're doing, because you feel out of control.
Yeah. I think there are different, everybody's unique, right? There are different levels of quote unquote addiction where sometimes people feel like I want to stop. Like we've talked about that a lot, where they get to this point where they know they're doing what they want to do, but maybe they're doing it more than what they think they want. And so it really becomes this process of trying to learn about yourself.
Yeah. And I was on the, I think it was the deprogramming from AA group on Facebook this past weekend. And there was a guy who said that. He said, I really feel like I'm out of control, but I sat down and did what you guys talked about on the podcast. I drank without my phone, without any ancillary fantasy, just me, the bottle, and a table, in a relatively low lit room. So there's no stimulus for fantasy. And what he found was that the experience of drinking in that setting was miserable because he was stuck with the reality that the alcohol didn't do anything magical.
I saw that. I think that was actually in our group.
Was that in the Freedom Model?
I think it might have been in the Freedom Model group. Yeah, I saw that whole post. He went through a whole litany of reasons why he doesn't like it anymore.
Yeah. And so he's well on his way to debunking the idea that alcohol and drugs are magic. And he's in that place where this reality of, oh my God, I'm creating the fantasy myself. This is all me making this habit valuable to myself because I perceived and that alcohol was magical. And I bought into the marketing ideas of the alcohol industry that it makes you more social, makes you happier, prettier, whatever it might be. So,
but then he did still express, then how do I stop? And it's like, well, it's like they're waiting for permission.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can stop anytime you want because you've never been out of control. And so that's when you go back to the basics. It's like, you're not out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. There is no, I always used to say this, I'm going to say it now. There is no nebulous force called addiction. There's no force that compels use. And in order for addiction in the common compelled behavior definition to exist is if you believe there's some force outside yourself doing the compelling.
Right.
So people don't think about that. They just say, yeah, I can't stop. By what power?
Yeah.
What power is compelling you? And then people say, well, it's when I drink, I can't stop. And I go, okay, by what power? Does alcohol have the capacity to change your mind for you? And I think that sometimes, a lot of times, people don't ask themselves these pointed questions. They don't think deeply enough because they're just caught in this belief system.
Well, and then it's compounded with respect to alcohol and some of the and some other drugs. It's compounded by the withdrawal phenomenon, right? So with people go, well, if I stop, I feel like shit. And okay, yes, if you're drinking enough, and you've been drinking long enough and with the right frequency, so to speak, you may experience physical withdrawal symptoms as you detoxify from alcohol. Alcohol is poison. It affects just about every cell in your body. Every single everything. Organ. I couldn't think of the word organ. Every single organ in your body. And so, yeah, you might go through a period of withdrawal. That's not compelling you to keep using. It may be a reason.
Right. Feeling sick is not a compelling force.
No.
I want to repeat what I just said. Feeling sick is not a compelling force. So it doesn't have intelligence. It can't say to you, it can't say anything. It doesn't have sentience. So we get very mixed up.
We do. Because I want to just digress for a minute too. I felt terrible on Christmas Day. I had a stomach bug, and honest to God, between Christmas Day and then the day after Christmas, I woke up feeling like I had a horrible hangover. And I had the headache and the stomach ache, the whole thing. I mean, I had been feverish all night. I did not at any point in time during that illness, which is very similar to withdrawal from alcohol, feel like I should drink. I was never felt compelled to have a drink.
That's a perfect example. That's such a great way to look at it. So feeling sick it's only when we attach belief
that's right
that the alcohol will solve it and solve it permanently that we continue to drink. But again, that's a thought that you could easily just go through a 3-day feeling sick and then move on with your life,
which is what we both did. And I want to tell you something. Interestingly enough, I didn't feel like drinking water, which I needed. And I knew I needed and forced myself to keep drinking, because when you have a virus like that, a bug like that, the only thing that helps is rest and hydration. Right. So even though my body physically needed water, I did not feel like drinking it. I did not want to drink it. I had to force myself to do it. So this idea that when we have cravings for things, it's because it's your body telling you need this. Not necessarily true either. Cravings come from your mind and your beliefs.
Craving is wanting.
That's all it is.
But if you take the word craving and then you attach this belief that there's some compelling force, now craving is something you can't control. It's compelling you, and you fall into this crazy uncontrolled usage. That's all belief based.
All of it. Which is in your mind.
Yeah.
Not your physical body.
That's right. So So we're going to talk about moving on from a 90-year-old paradigm, 85-year-old paradigm in AA, the 12 steps, and that religion, right? So in 2025, we're letting go of the old. We're letting go of feeling compelled. We're letting go of the belief system of needing meetings. We're letting go of the need for all this professional exterior help for some external nebulous force that's got you under its spell. You're letting go of that. And then now we're letting go, hopefully, through the knowledge of this book, through research and fact, you can also let go of the new religion, which is the neurobiological argument that you're run by your biochemistry. That's the new religion. And that is that you are run by your body. Your body makes decisions for you. Your body feels a certain way, so therefore you have no control. And that argument has to go out the window, because your neurons don't make decisions for you. The software that runs neurons is your mind.
Yes.
So the intelligence is your thoughts and your beliefs. So your beliefs run your brain tissue, not the other way around. I want to say that again. Your thoughts, your beliefs run your brain tissue. Your brain tissue, your neurons, do not run and create thought on their own and then tell your mind what to think and do and how you should behave. So this idea that I just said is ignored by the entire, basically, not the entire, but almost all of the biologic centered community, the brain centrists.
Yeah.
Ignore the fact that you think for yourself.
Pretty much the entire addiction treatment industry ignores it, which is why their success rates are so terrible, which is why we see that when the more exposure people have to treatment, the longer they struggle, even though in the end, most people get over the problem. They do it in spite of what they're learning there, not because of it. Eventually, and you see this with people all the time, eventually people come to the conclusion that they're happier without the substance. They're happier moving on from a behavior. And a lot of times they'll misattribute that change of mind with the treatment they got, even though they maybe went to multiple treatment programs, even though, maybe they were in and out of meetings and 12-step groups for years and years and years. They'll think, oh, it finally stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was some magical thing that happened in the meeting or the therapy session, when the reality is your mind is even interpreting that.
Yes.
So ultimately, all change has to come from what? You.
That's right.
There is no exterior thing there. And I call it nebulous because if you start to believe that your therapist has the key, or that there's some sort of recipe within the 12 steps that's mystical and divinely given, and that you tell your life story to some stranger called a sponsor who's just as screwed up as you are, by the way. And that there's something that happens that's magical. God, I used to remember going to AA and thinking, why are we talking in this weird way? What the fuck are we doing? This is weird, and all these rules and regulations about relationships and what job you should get and how many meetings you go to and all that. What the hell does that have to do with me choosing to drink Johnny Walker? I mean, it's so weird. And so, but I dove into it just like probably a lot of you have. I spent 2 decades of my life, 10 years as a child in the cult with my family, and then 10 years as a guru.
Primed the pump, so to speak. I mean, I think about who I am as a person, and I've always been this person that kind of bucked authority and questioned everything and didn't take things at face value. And I look at that, and there's a lot of us like that bought in. But I'm not sure that I would have been that person that bought in had I not been raised there.
Yeah.
Because even being raised in it, and it felt weird even as a kid, and it was very strange as I was growing up, and then going there, it still didn't quite click.
Yeah, well, it's always weird. It's always weird. I was talking to a fella on Saturday night. He had called the helpline. And if you need that helpline, by the way, it's right there. It's on the skin of the imagery.
It's, the top corner. But we can't see it because it's behind our little recording icon.
Yeah, but if you're listening and you don't see it, it's 888-424-2626. And if I said that too fast, just rewind it. So I was talking to this fella, and he explained to me this really strange situation that he found himself in with a meeting, and his sponsor and this girlfriend, and this whole situation happened where a text was made and it really wasn't off color. And then the sponsor was like, I'm going to send the cops over for a wellness check. And this dude was like, I've been sober for like 5 years. It was kind of a joke, text. You don't have a sense of humor. You're talking to me. I'm fine. And they did. They sent the cops over, and it became this big thing with the wellness check. And, he was massively embarrassed. This was during Christmas, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
And then the sponsor, it was involved. And then this fella said to me, this is how he said it. He goes, this was just fucking weird. And he's been involved in rehabs and the whole recovery system for decades. And he said, I think it's time for me to move past this and now what was really interesting is he kept going back to, but it really helped me. It did this for me. It did that. And I said, well, just read our book. And I think you'll realize some things about what is reality, what is going on.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to just move on from that paradigm, which is fucking weird. Okay. Yeah. It is. Cults are strange. And they do things that don't make logical sense.
And there is a reason. And I'm not going to deny this. Mark and I are very harshly critical of AA, and we'll say, there's nothing good there. And that is true, by the way. Okay. But our experience, I'm not going to deny that when I first went, we talk about being love bombed. There is a certain sense of, okay, maybe I'm where I belong now. And you feel a certain sense of relief. Like the first meeting that I was brought to, I had horrible anxiety about it. This woman was a stranger to me, and she came and picked me up for my first meeting and brought me to a meeting where nobody would know me because although they knew my dad, so it was, 45 minutes away from my house. And it was just, but for the first month or two, it was like this. When I was at the meetings, I would feel strange, but also people were very kind for the most part. And it feels there's an allure there, and it feels like it's helpful, right? It feels like not everybody has that experience, but a lot of people do, or they wouldn't stick around even for the first month.
That's right.
Right. And so it's designed to do that. It's designed to make the newcomer feel special. And you start to feel like, oh, I'm going to be in this secret club, this inner circle. And
that you're in a sort of a love-bombed nest of safety.
Yes.
When it couldn't be any further from the truth in the long run. And when AA shows its true face and true colors, just give it enough time and you will see why we say it's a cult. And that isn't us being vindictive or pissed
angry.
Off or angry. It's
not at all.
I taught AA like a guru, a big book thumping, crazy zealot for a long time, for nearly 10 years. So I understand being totally immersed in it and really feeling like I was doing a good job for people and with people, when frankly, I was just teaching them something that kept them distracted from reality, which is themselves. You are your own answer. Your mind is the operative force. You're not compelled to use substances, and you're also not compelled by a meeting to be sober.
And here's the interesting thing that both Mark and I had in common is when I went to my first AA meeting, I was done.
Yeah, me too.
I was done. So I looked for the positive things there that I felt like were going to help me. And when you look for positive things, you see them. And so when people come on and say, hey, it was very helpful to me. It was helpful to me. You're like us. When you went to AA that last time, you were done. And so you looked for the positive things, and then you gave those things credit.
Yeah.
For your choice that you made before you went there.
Yeah, it's self-corroborating. So So it's like Michelle always says, if somebody says, how many red cars do you see on the way to work? That's all you see is red cars, you know?
Yeah. Whatever you look for, you're going to see.
Yeah. So the common idea is that AA is the answer, or NA or whatever. But so this podcast, today's episode, is all about letting go of the old. And that can mean drinking, PMOing, whatever it is.
It can mean meetings.
And it can be recovery.
Yeah.
Letting go of recovery, because there's nothing to recover from. There's just choices to be made. I want to say that again. There's nothing to recover from. There are just choices to be made. And when you understand the three attributes of the human psyche, as we describe them in the freedom model, that you have autonomy, that you have free will, that you're driven by the pursuit of happiness, that these are immutable things that no matter what, you can't change, and that they're awesome. When you understand that that's how you're motivated and that's how you're driven, then you start to realize, oh my God, I was driven to drink by my desire to be a happier person. Then you can own it. Then you can analyze it. Then you can question it. Then you can challenge it. And then you can move on from it. But you can't if you're focused on a meeting or some chapter in a book that was written in fantasy land in 1935 by a bum named Bill Wilson. It doesn't make any sense to do that unless you just want to hide. Now, I get there's another value to the 12-step recovery paradigm, and that is it's insulative. It allows you the excuse to hide from life.
Yeah.
And if you're frightened of life, and that's one of the reasons that you drank and drugged heavily, and you didn't want to move on with your life, and you're frightened of the risks of real relationships and loving and being vulnerable and all the things that are the muddiness of life, you may find real value in recovery because it's insulative. It's going to isolate you from life to a certain degree. But here's the problem with it. Because recovery is just people, it's just another group of people. Guess what? Life is going to be there because life is people. And unfortunately, in recovery, if you're hanging out with the old timers, you're hanging out with the gurus, now you're in a power hierarchy, a cult, and you don't know it. So suddenly now you're cast into a situation that is really life again, except it's worse. It's just like the bar, like a seedy, shitty bar. And that is, there's power hierarchies, there's cliques, there's rumor milling, there's really painful judgments and shaming that goes on. And so when all the love bombing is gone, guess what? The ugliness of life really sticks out in a cult because it's all a power hierarchy. And so you can't really avoid life, even in a cult. You can't.
No.
It's going to rear its ugly head there. Now, the beauty of all this is, in the freedom model, you don't have any of that. You just have you. Just you. Making decisions and deciding for yourself what makes you happy. And most of this book is debunking all the bullshit that keeps you from yourself.
Yeah.
That keeps you from recognizing, oh my God, I built my habit because I wanted to be drunk all the time for these 10 reasons.
Yeah.
And I get to challenge that now and look at it and say, does this serve me today? And I don't need a meeting for that. Now, if some of you need coaching, we do coaching. But the point is, it's got an end date, man. Within usually three sessions, we can get through this content, figure out what you need, figure out where you're stuck, where's faulty logic, what's the mythology you're looking at, and get through it and show you the truth that you are your answer. You are your answer.
Well, he's right. When you were talking, like my mind goes through different scenarios because I try to be ready to respond when he's talking, but then I got wrapped up in what he was saying. So, but I was thinking about when I first went to AA and how it becomes attractive to people. That methodology becomes attractive to people who do use substances or whatever their habit is to hide out in so they can avoid life. And then you just replace that with recovery,
where you're
just hiding out there. So you can pseudo avoid life, but life is happening regardless.
Yeah,
and so Mark is absolutely right. The insulative nature of it, when I was done, and which is why I didn't hide out there. I bucked the system at every turn. I was told not to go back to college, and I went back to college right away. I was told not to get involved in a relationship. I met the man that I was going to marry and got with him right away, and I'm still with him today. And
how many years has that been?
35 years this year coming up.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I was ready. So you can't avoid life. That's the point of this.
Yeah. Not even in a cult.
Not even in a rehab.
That's right.
Not sitting in a church basement in a meeting. Not at the bottom of a bottle. Not looking at YouTube.
That's right.
Like, life is going to happen all around you. And when you don't take an active role, when you become a passive person in life, it's kind of like, it is a lot like taking your hands off the wheel when you're driving on a highway at 80 miles an hour.
Well, I when I'm coaching somebody, I always say, don't you feel like a pinball? You're the ball in a pinball machine, and you're just reacting, and then you're in a slump.
Yeah.
And you get pitched out again. You make an attempt, and you react, and you react, and you react. And if you're drinking and drugging or PMOing or whatever it is, you're just reacting, hiding. And then you get pitched back out. You know why? Because life demands it. You have to eventually have a job. You have to feed yourself. You have to do the functions of life. And even in a cult, you got to do that. So you have this push and pull called life. Now, here's what's interesting. Because life is the way it is, you can't avoid it.
No.
You can't avoid it.
And the more you try to avoid it, and look at, this also includes emotional problems that you end up going to doctors and psychiatrists and counselors and medications and all this stuff. And much of the Western world is set up. So if that's your issue, then you get this sheltered kind of life that isn't different than trying to hide at the bottom of a bottle or trying to hide out behind a computer screen or whatever. You get this kind of
chemical lobotomy.
Yeah, muted life that is not better.
That's right.
It's not. The more you try to insulate yourself from the way the world is and how life is, the more muted your life becomes, and less fulfilling, and
the more life will intrude on that insulated pocket that you're in. You will not be able to avoid it. And so life is going to land on you like that pinball machine. And then you're going to feel the victim. And when you get into that
mode,
that sort of,
which both he and I have been in, by the way, no judgment here.
That's right. That passive, depressed victim mentality, boy, that's a tough road to hoe. It ends up being, you're going to be focused on something because the human mind doesn't shut off.
No,
it's a perpetual motion machine, metaphysically. So you can't avoid life. So you're going to either focus on isolating yourself, and then life is going to land in your lap no matter what.
That's right.
Now you don't even have control. Then you feel like life is just hitting you, and you get smaller and smaller, and life keeps hitting you. And if you become focused on, I am a victim, I really can't handle this, and you say things like that, guess what?
Why does this always happen to me?
Yeah.
Why am I an addict? Why am I struggling with this problem? Why?
So then the question becomes, if you want to continue to focus on life in this way, you have to be willing to pay the price of that.
Right.
And so the question then becomes, well, maybe if I become a proactive individual and I let go and I don't allow myself the privilege of self-pity and depression, and I say, no, I'm not allowed to be that way. You can make that decision today, right now. Out with the old, in with the new. That's what 2025 is. No more being a victim, no more self-pity. Just, what can I do to fix this? All of a sudden now you're subservient to this idea, because you've created it,
right,
of, I'm no longer a victim. Well, guess what? Your life will expand. Yeah. So the question is, are you subservient to making your life smaller and painful, or are you going to address the pain, and make your life bigger. Now, I realize this might sound like pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go. It's not that simple.
No.
Sometimes it requires a tremendous amount of information to debunk all this belief system that's got you totally fucked. Okay. And that's a reality that some of you may have to deal with. I had to. Yeah. I was taught all the wrong stuff, but I was willing to out with the old, in with the new. I was willing to gain knowledge.
That's it.
Self-empowering knowledge. And you can too. Absolutely can.
And look we have, obviously, this podcast you're listening to right now. This is, I think, episode 252. So we have 251 before this episode. So that's a huge body of knowledge that you can get for nothing, right? That all you have to do is take your time to listen. We have this book, very inexpensive online, whether you get the digital version, you can order the paperback on Amazon. We have workshops.
And you can, in the live workshops, you can ask us questions. We're going to have 3 Q&A sessions
throughout the workshop, right? So you'll be able to talk directly with us. So we're going to have the live workshops throughout the year. We have pre-recorded workshops if you can't attend a live workshop. There is, and we have different coaching options, coaching package options. So there's a lot of ways to gain this knowledge so you can take control of your life. You can leave all that bullshit in the past. Right. You can challenge the beliefs you have that are keeping you stuck and really finally move on with your life and get the life you really want.
Yeah. So please understand there's no judgment here. I tend to be very strong when I talk, but you need to know that I've looked down the barrel of a gun. I've been in jail. I've been in rehabs. I've done all this, and I know how painful that place can be. But I'm not anymore and haven't been for decades. And my life has been wonderful. It's had its challenges, but it's been wonderful. And you need to know that that's possible. Not only is it possible, but all the information has been done for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to go searching in all these groups and we have it. It's there. And then you can take it, read it, learn it, and then move on with your life.
Yep. So Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much to all of our loyal listeners and people who have supported us all these years. We're so grateful. This will be our 35th year, or this is our 35th year.
Yeah.
And we're just really excited to be able to keep bringing you the truth.
That's right. And so we figured it out last year that we've helped over 27,000 people over the last 35 years. And if you need help, we're here for you.
We are. So you can call us at 888-424-2626. And I think that toll-free number works pretty much from around the world now. But if you can't reach us at that number, you can always reach us at info@thefreedommodel.org. That's INFO, like information, at thefreedommodel.org.
And if you email us, we usually get back to you relatively quick, within a few days.
We do.
If you don't have an email back from us, check your junk folder. Sometimes our stuff
and we have to keep checking our junk folder too, because some of those emails go into our junk too.
Yeah, I don't know why.
So if you don't hear back from us right away, email us again, because I do typically check those junk and spam folders pretty frequently. But you can also reach us on social media as well. The Freedom Model Facebook page. We have the private Freedom Model Facebook group.
YouTube channel has a tremendous amount of videos.
Yep, with YouTube and Instagram and X, and we're going to be on. We're looking into all these different social media platforms as well. I know there's a bunch of new ones coming up. It's a lot, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to reach us. So thanks, everybody. We hope you have a great January.
Take care.